Kirby and the Forgotten Land was just announced yesterday, and people are losing their minds over it. Myself included.
Oh my god, I have waited my whole life for this! Oh my god, finally! Finally!
There's a lot to love about the reveal trailer, as is typical for Kirby games, but once you get over the initial hype and pick the trailer apart, there's a lot to uncover here. Come join me as Detective Kirby fan as we analyze the trailer and find out some cool new stuff. If you enjoy the video, remember to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you know whenever I upload, and let me know in the comments what you think of the trailer. Channel regulars, I'm sorry that there's no ring the notification bell bit today, but we gotta dive right into the action. First, let's talk copy abilities. Specifically, ones that are confirmed, so sword, cutter, needle, fire, and ice. We didn't get to see too much out of the ordinary for fire. It can light objects, interacting with the environment maybe, that's neat. Ice can still freeze enemies that you can kick into others, but the most exciting thing here is that Kirby can actually move around while using the ice breath, which seems really good. He can even cancel the attack into a run, which is huge, considering he could only cancel that move into Freezer Blizzard for years now. I wonder if Fire has similar buffs. For Cutter, despite being 3D, it doesn't seem like its range has been increased very much. In the other games, you can either hold the button down to make it go farther and/or angle it. Those are all 2D games though, and moving Kirby while trying to control the Cutter blade doesn't sound very intuitive. So this may be all Cutter's standard attack has. The good news is that it picks up collectibles now, which is a blessing for a 3D game. As for Needle, I am very happy to see it again, but on a more objective note, we have to talk about this. At first, I thought it was Needle's dash attack, just made bigger for 3D. Makes sense. But the two don't look or function alike at all. Namely, Kirby rolls into this needle ball thing in return and shoots forward fast, while he's clearly still poking the needles out here and not going nearly as fast. And look, you can see that his eyes are closed. The fact that you can see his eyes to begin with is totally different. While this could just be a 3D change, every other move we've seen in the trailer has been pretty faithfully carried over from older games, with minor changes at best. This very well could be a brand new move or a charged version of the dash attack. It could also replace the old one, I won't deny that, but I'm going with it being a new move entirely, with the old dash attack hopefully returning. For now. Concerning Sword, one thing grabbed my attention right away. Unfortunately, I don't have much to say on the spin attack though, since the move was already being used when it was shown off. I can't tell if it's a shorter charge like in Star Allies. That said, Kirby used Sword standard Sword Slash out of a run. As is to say, Kirby was running and he didn't use a dash attack. I don't think Hal would get rid of dash attacks entirely, so this heavily implies that dash attacks are mapped to their own button. They did this in Kirby Battle Royale, and I'm thrilled to see them borrow an idea from that game. It's a super underrated one. I love that one. Anyway, this is a pretty big deal, as dash attacks are some of the best ways to move around in 2D Kirby games, casual or speedrun, but sometimes you want to just do a regular attack. Splitting them into two different buttons, honestly, feels like something that should have been a long time coming. Moving away from copy abilities for now, starting small, this sign here in what appears to be the shopping mall food court place has a design on it that looks an awful lot like Pix from Kirby 64. The colors are different, and I'm assuming you don't have to wait 2 or 3 minutes to advance past this point, so it may not actually have much to do with Pix, but it is a Kirby 64 connection. Considering the previous 2 games, Planet Robobot, speaking of Planet Robobot, doesn't this car look a lot like the one that the Waddle Dees drive? Anyway, also Star Allies had some strong nods to Dreamland 2 and Dreamland 3, respectively. Forgotten Land could continue that trend with Kirby 64. As it is, many people have noticed that this whole area gives off some pretty strong factory inspection vibes from Shiverstar from Kirby 64. Later on in the trailer, we can see some enemies that practically scream, "We're going to give you the animal ability," and initially, I thought it had to be the case. Animal did place in the top 5 for both of the Battle Royale ability popularity polls, so it just had to make perfect sense. Unfortunately, these enemies seem to be the game's equivalent to the Waddle Dee, which, of course, don't give you any abilities. This doesn't necessarily mean that they don't give you animal, just that, looking at previous games in the series, it means that it's unlikely. In the same room as this, when Kirby climbs up the escalator, through the middle. Way to be extra, Kirby. Wow. We can see a huge enemy falling for a second in the background. When I saw this, it reminded me of a certain spoiler character from Star Allies, but it's pretty clear that it's going to be the gorilla that's shown off later in the trailer. Still, this is very exciting. Having what looks to be a boss, or even just a mini-boss, being shown in this kind of way is totally different from what Kirby normally does. We only ever see stuff like this in rooms leading up to a boss. I think Tyranza carrying Day-to-Day away in Triple Deluxe, for example. This line of thinking would make you think that maybe this is a boss prelude room, but those don't typically have normal enemies than them. And look, right here, enemies. So either it's a boss and they're going somewhere crazy, or it's a mini-boss and they're going somewhere crazy. Of course, this could just not be the gorilla and it's something else. We don't really know yet, and that's exciting. Shift your attention away from the exciting big gorilla maybe thing, though, and look at these things. I can't quite tell what they are. They kind of look like bananas to me, but I can say that I am pretty sure they're not stars. Are these kind of collectible? This game's version of the Sunstones or the Code Cubes? You get a certain amount of bananas and the gorilla goes... banana! And attacks? I don't know. They may not even be bananas. For me, at least, it's kind of hard to tell from watching a video, you know, pit rate and all that fun stuff. But at the very least, they're not stars. Speaking of stars, it looks like Kirby can get these by defeating enemies now. I wasn't sure if they were unrelated to the star bits we already have, but you can see them scattered along the ground a lot during the trailer. Since we didn't get to see the HUD during this, it's up in the air if they still give you lives, or if the game is taking an approach like Mario Odyssey. No, you know what? We're giving the pioneers their due credit here. Epic yarn and ditching lives altogether. But for something more concrete, this is very hard to see in motion, but if you pause right around this point, you can see something very exciting. You see it yet? That's right, you got it. It's around 6:35 and the sun is still shining really bright. Time and the sun could work differently on Popstar, but assuming that it doesn't, this either implies that Kirby woke up early for this adventure, or that it's close to summertime and the sun is still shining bright at 6:35, or 18:35, and with the heat this strong, you can assume that Poppy Brothers Jr. is in the game, and for the most part, you can get Bomb from them ever since the good old Kirby Superstar. While not confirmed, there's a pretty big chance that Bomb is going to be in the game. Also, while it's much later in the trailer, we can barely make out that Naughty is here, thus all but confirming that Sleep is in the game as well. And I guess this next bit isn't confirmed, but there's a very good chance that they carried this over from Kirby's Blowout Blast, one of Kirby's first 3D experiments. In that game, when you inhaled an enemy, you could hold down the shoot button and Kirby wouldn't walk around. He'd stand in place so that you could turn around and stuff. The visual indicator was that he was a lot less jiggly, to put it in as weird of a way that still makes sense. And as we can see here, super slowed down, Kirby's jiggling around with an enemy, but when he goes to shoot, no more jiggles. It would make a lot of sense to bring this back, so if it's true, I'm glad that they did. Right here, we can see that Kirby uses a guard, meaning that blocking from the Superstar or Return games is coming back. Always nice. This may kind of look like a crouch in a way, but not only does it look a lot more like Kirby's guard than a crouch, but shortly after, we see this crazy backwards roll. Of course, it's another defensive maneuver, but it goes much farther than the rolls that were introduced in Triple Deluxe go. It looks like Kirby enters the guard stance for a frame or two before doing the roll. So, is this the same thing? Is it just something that happens when Kirby's frightened? No more speculation, I kind of know, but I am leaning towards this being the roll from previous games being majorly buffed here. Speaking of this area, though, look at these enemies. Do they look familiar? Thus far, they've only appeared in the Haunted House levels in Triple Deluxe. In those levels, there were invisible platforms, invisible enemies, and generally just things that kind of played with your senses to really make some memorable levels. From the few shots that we get of this area, and the fact that these enemies, called horror tramps, are here, I definitely get that vibe. It definitely seems like we're going to be in for something crazy once we get to this part of the game. There's a lot of little things to appreciate and think about. These cowboy-looking enemies with guns, guessing if the Super Inhale is the Return variant or the Amazing Mirror variant. Amogus. Admiring the look of Kirby after jumping out of the water, but I'll call it here for today. I'm sure there are things that I didn't cover in the video, so if you notice anything cool that I may have missed, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. I hope you're excited for Forgotten Land, and I'll see you around. Bye-bye.